Prince Harry, a member of the royal family, in any order in line to the throne. What an outrageous, offensive, insensitive, foolish, stupid thing to have done.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me. And it's, we're still a few days away from Spare to be officially released, but these trickles of information, some excerpts are starting to come out. And wow, what a bombshell. Prince Harry alleging that Prince William physically attacked him over Meghan Markle. I know that my jaw kind of hit the floor when I read this one. What was your reaction?
Well, I mean, if the couple had claimed their Netflix series was a retelling of their love story, then this book seems to leave no room for doubt. This is an all-out attack on the royal family. And we know from those early reports of the book as well that he's really laying into Prince William in this book, telling all the secrets of the private conversations that went on. So I think this is a declaration of all-out war.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, though, because he did say in a previous interview that he's hoping for a reconciliation. But when you're putting these claims out there, even alleging that William and Kate were the ones to kind of encourage him to wear the Nazi uniform, it seems like a reconciliation is never going to happen at this point.
That Nazi uniform claim is just outrageous. I have to say, who cares whose idea it was? This is a grown man who decided to dress up with a swastika armband as a Nazi at a party. Any grown man who does that needs to call into question their own behavior. But certainly, Prince Harry, a member of the royal family, in any order in line to the throne, what an outrageous, offensive, insensitive, foolish, stupid thing to have done. We've raked over that in the past, but he's the one that brought it up. He brought it up in the Netflix series and had this sort of contrition, said it was something he was deeply sorry for. It was a low point in his life. But then in the book, we seem to be finding out now he's blaming it on William. I think he's a grown man and he needs to take responsibility for his own actions, not trying to displace or blame others, especially in terms of his own racism and insensitivity about the death of 6 million Jews and plenty others during the Holocaust by dressing up as a Nazi at a costume party. That to me was actually the worst part of what was leaked from the book. But then of course, all the other stuff as well is on the one hand quite explosive and on the other hand quite pathetic. The idea that there is all of this fuss over a squabble between two brothers, it's like a soap opera. I mean, we have EastEnders here, but maybe it's like Days of Our Lives in the States. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that one, but no. I just think it's an absurd soap opera attempt on the royal family to turn them into this. It reminds me of that bit in the Kardashians where Kourtney and Kim had this massive physical fight over Kourtney's work ethic. I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about here. It's this massive physical fight, apparently. Or on the other hand, maybe it's just like two brothers who had a fight. One of them shoved the other one and he slipped over and hit the dog bowl. I mean, the dog bowl detail's got this sort of pathetic quality to it. I don't want to make light of it. It's obviously emotionally quite bad for Harry. But I will say this, there's no cure to being second born. And calling the book Spare, and this argument in which we're told he said he was treating him like a spare, all of these sorts of things just seem to point towards what I think, in my opinion, looks like a deep-rooted psychological problem with his birth order. And lots of people find that birth order affects them psychologically. Speak to any therapist and they'll tell you that's quite a common thing. And in that family, I suppose even more so, because your order in line to the throne it also determines your order of seniority and importance. But how is this the right way to achieve calm and tranquility in life, which is what they said they wanted? Raking over all this stuff in public and reliving these arguments, deeply private moments. And William had apparently, from what we've seen from this leaked extract, gone to Nottingham Cottage, where Harry and Meghan were living, to tell him that he had a problem with how Meghan was behaving. And the leak says that Harry told him he was adopting the media, the press's narrative on it all. Well, that kind of worked in the Netflix series when they blamed the press. But here we're talking about the next in line to the throne, who saw everything behind the scenes, behind closed doors. If Harry felt he knew what was going on in real life, surely William did too. And if William's saying the same thing as the media, perhaps it's called corroboration. Perhaps actually William is saying that the press had it right if Harry thinks that he's repeating what they said. And if that's the case, shouldn't a bit of introspection be what's in order for Harry and Meghan to look at the fact that the press, the media, and even his own brother were saying that there was a problem? However heated the argument got, I think that does some way go towards showing that maybe the press had it right in some of those reports.
No, definitely. We also had another excerpt go out this morning. This wasn't as shocking, but Prince Harry did recall thinking that Prince William was gone forever after his wedding to Kate, saying that it was yet another farewell under this horrid roof, probably talking about Westminster Abbey, and another sundering. I mean, it seems like I said, I think that the issue really is deeply within his relationship with his brother, saying that he was gone forever. It seems like, just based on it, it's like he wants his brother's approval so badly, and then he's just not getting it. And it seems like the abandonment issues are probably stemming from his mother. It seems like he has a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, we heard that after this fight, he called his therapist before he called his wife. Again, no criticism of that. I'm sure his therapist must be quite an important presence in his life because of the deep psychological impact all of this has on him. He keeps telling us that that's the case. So I'm not criticizing him for that. But yes, these revelations are personal and deeply personal. I think that's what we expected. It's certainly what the publishers would have expected for the money they're paying. I just have to keep saying that I think if what one is searching for is inner calm, tranquility, peace, overcoming tensions within one's own family, this isn't the way to go about it. To put them all out there in print, on Netflix, and all for massive amounts of money doesn't really look like you want to try to make things better. So saying in that interview that accompanies the book that we've seen the clips from, that you want your brother and your father back, but then doing this stuff in the book itself, it's very difficult to understand how those two things reconcile, even within his own mind. They certainly don't seem to fit together within mine. And I think that this tragedy of it is that for many years, we were all under the impression that the two brothers got along very well, that they were each other's moral and friendship support, that they kind of provided emotional support for each other in light of losing their mother and so publicly, and the breakdown of their parents' marriage in the pages of the press across the world. And then there seems to be this massive rift as they grew up. And if William getting married and growing up and moving on with his life as an adult seemed to be an abandonment to Harry, that is tragic to read about, but also very telling perhaps about his psychology, I would say, in my opinion. I think that also we can't give him a free pass. All of this is being done for sackloads of cash. This is commercial activity. And there is a huge interest in it. I can't deny it. You and I talk about this often because people want to hear about it. The press are covering it because people want to hear about it. If there's an enormous thirst for this, it doesn't mean we need to keep pouring on the drink. They are the people who could stop talking about it if it's damaging and hurting them so much. And even if they found that their behind the scenes approaches to their family have been met, as they say, with rejection, it doesn't mean they need to go public and do all this in public. It's exactly what they criticized Thomas Markle for doing on the other side of the family. Thomas Markle said he tried privately to make up with Meghan and Harry and it didn't get him anywhere, so he went to the press, and he's spoken publicly since then, and that seems to frustrate them. So it's hard to understand why they don't realize that works both ways.
Waking up, what do you think the palace reaction was to these stories that are starting to trickle out?
Well, I think they're going to wait and see what more is in the book. They don't have to wait very long now. It's also been seen on the shelves. I've seen in Spain in its Spanish edition already. So there might be a flurry of activity for Spanish to English translators translating the book back. Who knows? But I think that the royal family, obviously there will be people working for them at the very least who will be pouring through the pages trying to see what's in there, if there's any damage limitation they need to do. Their natural instinct is to try and ignore this stuff publicly at any rate. They don't want this to be a distraction from their own attempts and their own work and their own image that they're very carefully looking after. But of course, sometimes they do have to react. We saw the late Queen with her recollections may vary, and we may see more of that sort of thing. Also, though, there's somebody new in charge now, King Charles III, and he may have a different way of dealing with this. He may be firmer and harder. It's another thing that we're told happened was that he apparently spoke to his two sons after Prince Philip's funeral and urged them not to make his final years more difficult. Well, it doesn't seem like that message got through to Montecito at all. I think it seems to me that Harry and Meghan are quite comfortable with making his life harder and doing so in return for money. And people will judge them for that, I think, regardless of what they think about the emotional impact being in that family had on Harry's life. I think that people will still judge them, even if they're sympathetic towards some of his complaints, for selling this drama and these secrets to the very press that he complained about so frequently. Without that press interest, this book won't sell. Without that press interest, the Netflix series would have tanked. Without the press interest, we wouldn't be talking about Meghan and Harry. We wouldn't really know who Meghan Markle is, because without that press interest, well, what would they be selling? And I think that to me is the weird duality of this whole story. They very certainly seem within themselves to have a resentment against the press for the intrusion. And I suppose we can understand that. But at the same time, they know they rely on that press coverage to sell what it is they're using to pay for their lavish lifestyle.
Right. I mean, is the royal family almost forced in a way? I mean, nobody's ever going to force the royal family to do something, but can you stay silent for this long when a flurry of accusations are coming your way? It's kind of hard to ignore it.
Well, sometimes they respond without responding, if you see what I mean. So sometimes they respond in their actions or by getting on with business as usual.
Right.
And I think they may try to do that. On the large part of their reaction, I think, will be to show that they do what they do, and that's that. And I always say this as well, that while these things are potentially damaging to the royal family, you've got to remember that the royal family and the California branch of the family operate on very different PR strategies. So the royal family is concerned with, in terms of PR, in terms of its reputation, it's generational, it's historical, it's traditional. It thinks in decades and centuries. Of course, two people trying to carve out a new life over the ocean aren't thinking in terms of that necessarily. They're thinking about their lifetime and their reputation, and even more immediately, the next year or two, when their earning potential might be at its highest. So I think that they have two different agendas, and that's why sometimes the royal family probably is willing to ride out a storm if it's not too irrevocably damaging or permanently damaging, because they know that in the longer war, even if they lost the odd battle, they're going to come out on top. And I suspect that will be their guiding principle when they're deciding how to react. But of course, they will have to react here and there, even if not directly, to some of the things that are being said.
Definitely. And then, we saw one more clip from ITV with Prince Harry saying that he's unsure if he'll attend the coronation. I can't imagine an invitation's in the mail at the moment. And then he did say that the ball is in King Charles and Prince William's court, which I just find interesting as well, because it doesn't really seem that way.
I mean, the ball may be in their court, but the second it's volleyed back, it could be lobbed in their face. And I think that in terms of the coronation, that's also a question that people have been asking over and over. Will they be invited, and then will they attend? I think they will be invited, because I think that the king wants to invite them. And I think also not inviting them would look potentially difficult or bad in this ongoing drama. So I think if the royal family is interested to try and just quell this soap opera, the best thing they can do is just keep behaving in the proper way. Whether or not they will expect them to come or not is another matter. And whether or not they will come is another matter yet again, because I think you'd have to be quite, I'm not sure what the word is, to do all of this, to write this in the books, to give these interviews, to do these Netflix interviews as well, and then turn up to the coronation as if nothing's happened. I think that would be quite an extraordinary thing to do. But then some people wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. Oh, God. I can't believe we're just getting started. We haven't even scratched the surface about what else is in this book. But Jonathan, I really appreciate your time as always. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.